Hi everyone. I've base stitched my exterior piece to the foam. Because I'm using scrim, I didn't need to add an extra layer of stitching, but you can see I've just stitched as close to the edge as possible just to catch the scrim on the back. That's just going to hold it in place. If you were using foam, you would iron it on and it would do the same thing. So I've just done a run of stitching all the way along. The next thing I just want to talk about is zips. If you've not made a bag with zips before, or you're new to zips, it can be quite scary. I was nervous with zips at first as well, but I've just following patterns, I get it now. So the bag that I'm making at the moment has a central zip. So that's the top part of the bag. This is the bottom part of the bag, and there's a zip that's going to be going all the way through. So this essentially becomes an outside pocket. Stitching those two together is quite easy, but you have to think about the lining that's going to be inside as well. So that's what it's going to look like when it's, move that down, that's what it will look like when it's completed. But I've got a lining piece that's going to be inside, so when it's all stitched together, if I do that, I'll then be able to unzip, and then I've got my pocket piece and my lining piece. Now you have to kind of work upside down, because once your zip is attached, when you open up the pocket, you don't want to be seeing the seams. That all has to be hidden. So that's what it will look like once it's done. Now you can see that the zip I'm using is longer than this, but that's fine because you can cut down the zip. So the first thing that I'm going to do is attach the lining to the zip, but you have to work upside down. So I want my bag zip to be on the left when I'm looking at the bag, but in order to attach the lining, I'm going to do it upside down. And the first thing I'm going to do is clip this lining piece to the zip, and I'm just going to do a 1/8 inch basting stitch, similar to the basting stitch I did with the scrim. Once that's stitched, now I use clips as I go along. There. When that's stitched in place, that's what you'll see when you open up the zip. You will see just the two attached together. What you're not going to see is the seam. Once that's clipped in place, once that's stitched, your top exterior piece is then going to go on the top. So it's actually going to go that way around, it's going to go upside down. So you're essentially sandwiching the zip in between the two. You're sandwiching the zip in between the exterior fabric and the outside fabric. So you have to imagine that once that's stitched in place, when I then open that up, what you'll have is I try and do this with one hand and clipped in place. Once it's stitched, you're going to have this seam hidden, because when you open up the zip, you're going to see that side, not this seamed side. And then when your exterior piece is on top, obviously that's hemmed under. So when you open up your zip, your seam is sandwiched, so you won't see it. So I'm going to first of all base stitch this in place, and then I'm going to stitch my exterior on top, and then I'll show you what that looks like afterwards. Most bag patterns will tell you to press the seams. I never used to do that, and my seams always looked a bit just lumpy. So I started pressing the seams, and it does make a big difference. So if ever you're reading a pattern and it says to press the seams, you should make sure that you do that, because it does just make a real difference. Pressing the seam will also, particularly with this zip, you're going to press the seam, you would press the seam away from the zip, so it just gives a nice crisp line. Unfortunately, I can't hand crank and stitch and hold the camera at the same time, so I'm going to put the base stitch in, I'm going to do the top, and then I'll show you what that looks like.